Hey, welcome back y'all. I just wanted to quickly do something cool and drop a video about the difference between a web designer and a web developer. Why is it important for me to make this video? I often get asked the question, hey man, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a web designer, but then sometimes I'm like, I'm a web developer, but I'm actually a combination of both. And a lot of us need to be both if we're gonna make it in this industry. It's 2024, AI is taking over a lot of things. If you're just strictly a web developer and you went to a boot camp or you graduated, like, there's my cat Brock. What are you doing? He's my hairiest boy. Look at him. Come on, say hi, Brock. Anyway, yeah, so like with AI, like if you're a React developer or just a web developer and you're looking for code and stuff, you can just type it in on, I'm sure you already know, but you can just type it in on ChatGPT and boom, you could ask it a couple. It's a little outdated. It's about 2 years outdated. I think it still pulls data from 2023 or 22 even. So I mean, it's a little bit outdated, but you can get away with things instead of using Stack Overflow in that regard. You can't get away with things in web design, however, and it's also very important to do that, to know both, because when you're passing off things as a designer to a web developer, you kind of want to understand like the box model, you want to understand how things are developed, you want to understand like the logic behind things, responsiveness. I see a lot of designers that constantly just do desktop, which is all right, but I mean, honestly, 90%, I don't even know what the percentage is, but it's super high, only use mobile. Like a lot of us use mobile when we're on the go and stuff, and you just want to look up a website, you use mobile. Like, I mean, these designers are using desktop to build out things. It's ridiculous. At like literally 8 years that I've been in the game, every single designer I've worked with uses desktop, and I'm like, guys, and then I have to, like, as a developer, I have to like make it up as I go how it's gonna be on mobile, which that's the most important thing, mobile. So I mean, and then often you can't use the same elements on desktop as mobile, so it's like, what's going on? So that's why I kind of want to shed some light on why you should be both, like a little hybrid role, and also want to shed a little bit of light on how I got a job as kind of like a UX engineer at Callaway and where I'm at today. So for joining. Let's get started, shall we? Let's get Brock, move. Look at him. Look at his bushy tail. All right, here's my other cat, Ash. Say hi, Ash. Look at him. So first and foremost, what are the roles? I'm just gonna briefly go over it because I want to keep this video short and to the point. I want to get some views on TikTok, you know how I do. I want to get some views on LinkedIn, you know how I do as well. And I want to get some generation to my website. Come on, guys. All right, so check it out. What is the web designer? The definition that I pulled from just gathering a bunch of information, like, you know, chatbots, YouTube, Reddit. So a web designer focuses on the visual aspects of a website, how things are going to look, the aesthetics, layouts, wireframes, color schemes, fonts, typography, the imagery that's going to be on there, the animations, prototyping, that kind of thing. Hello, future me. Why am I wearing different clothes? Because I have to record this section at a later date because I ran out of time. So that's why I look like I do now. I am recording it the weekend after I started the recording. So just a little explanation. Web designer. Let me get back to it. Notes here, but everything is off the dome, okay? So I don't want to script anything. I want it to be unique. I want it to be good. I want it to be me. For me personally, I like to, when I'm designing a website, I like to go out and take the photos with this camera that you guys are seeing right here. I like to take photos personally for them based on how I think the website's gonna look. So like I can frame it out the way I want it, the way I envision it. So I'll design the website first, and then after I get the layout going, I'll go take my camera to the client and I'll take a few photos here and there. And so I mean, it just looks way more sharp. Professional photos, think about it, when you go to a website and you see like the most sharpest imagery and cool animations and stuff, but when you see like a website and it just stands out, the reason is because these images are like perfect. Like it's like painting a picture, telling you a story. So that's what a web designer really is. Basically, that's what a web designer really is. So layouts, wireframes, color schemes, imagery, like I said, photography, basic UX, user experience, the way things flow, and stuff like that. So common tools. I want to talk about this. The common tools that a web designer, if you're a web designer, the most common tools you're going to use, and the number one choice is Figma. Please don't do anything else foremost, if you're in your professional environment and you're not using Figma, what are you doing? Because don't use Photoshop. Photoshop is for photos only. It's written in the name. You're photoshopping something. You're not designing layout. So please, if you're working with a Photoshop designer, it's a huge red flag. They're either outdated or I don't know what's going on with them. Their company doesn't want to pay for a Figma membership, which Figma is getting a little bit more pricey, but that's a different story for a different year. So anyway, another common tool is Adobe XD, which is pretty good. Like I started off using that back 9 years ago. It helps a lot. It works well with Photoshop and Illustrator and other Adobe products. So I would recommend that too if you're starting off and you kind of already have like an Adobe subscription. But if not, Figma is the #1 choice. It's free. I mean, you get so many different things you can do. They had dev mode for a while, but they kind of got rid of that unless you pay a really heavy premium. But I mean, you can do so many things with it. You can do auto layout, Flexbox. Literally, it's Flexbox. So if you're familiar with that, if you're familiar with the box model and everything, then you're gonna have a good time. All right, so Figma. Let me talk about Figma really quick. So here's a reason why you kind of want to be a web designer and developer, and it's because if you're a web developer, you understand the box model. So a box, you think of everything as a grid, and everything is in a box, and you have the padding, then you have the margin on the outside, and then the box itself contains the content inside of that. So inside of the box, you have the padding. I'm sorry. Outside, you have the margin. Inside of the padding, you have the content, and everything lives in the core structure of a document that goes onto the website and produces what the front end user sees. So, but you also want to understand this if you're a web designer. So you have the content, right? The content that you see on the website. Did you guys just see my cat? He's not. All right, he had the zoomies. Okay, he's got the zoomies. If you're a cat owner, you know what the zoomies are. Crazy cat. All right, so you think of a web page. When you go to a website, you see a grid, right? And the standard is 12 columns. You see the grid. Then inside of the grid, you want to put these little boxes. Each little box is a section of the website, a component, if you will. So let me give you a really breakdown of it. The content, the actual HTML element, such as text, images, any kind of thing you can think of. That's the actual element inside of the content, and that's what is going inside of the box, using that margin instead of padding, because padding is inside of the box. So please don't get that confused if you're a web designer and you're handing it off to a developer. You're developing height. If you're on Figma and you're developing the height and width of you do everything inside of the box, you do the padding, then you do the margin, and then when you're controlling the width and the height of this said box, then you're understanding the box model is crucial for accurately positioning and styling the elements on this web page, as it affects elements interact with each other and the layout of the overall. So once you understand the box model, then you can understand positioning, styling, and the overall interaction of a website. So that's what's important. So when you're a developer, you expect to receive the designs that follow that, because if you don't and you're just designing stuff and like for a print or something, all the elements are everywhere. It's not inside of like a box, and the padding and margin and spacing is all messed up. And like when you're a developer and you're looking at that and it's inconsistent, it's just bad practice altogether. So that's why you kind of want to understand the box model, and that's why you kind of want to learn a little bit of web development if you're going the designer route. Okay, enough about web design. Let me get into web development. There are 3 primary tools you want to learn as a web developer. Of course, you all know it. I'm just going to go through it briefly. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are the main 3. So please just understand that those 3 are the core of being in the web, and that's also what I do, and that's what I started off with, just learning those 3. I also learned jQuery, which just kind of faded out in 2024. Actually, it started fading out before 2020, the pandemic. But I mean, you can still use it, and a lot of people use it today for WordPress. There's also JavaScript frameworks in addition to JavaScript, which you want to learn that if you're specifically going web development. But if you want to be like a hybrid role, you don't really need to dive into these kind of tools. So React, Angular, Svelte, how can I forget Vue? Vue is what I actually started using at my previous job. Look at, there's Ash again. Hi, Ash. So those are JavaScript frameworks, and they really boost up the speed. Understanding how CSS works can really go a long way when you're designing web pages. So like, you just want to make it easier on the developer. If you understand CSS and you understand the box model and you understand like the core elements with HTML, you'll be able to design a lot faster. So I'm talking about headers, like headings. It should be structured H1, H2, H3. It should cascade all the way down and have like a hierarchy. So when you're designing that, you don't want to be all over the place, like, you know how some print designers are and graphics artists. Like they'll just be everywhere with designing, so you don't really want to do that. Another thing about web development is you kind of like thinking more logically instead of creatively. So you want to focus more on the functionality, like how things are going to work. So when you get like a static web design file and the designer really doesn't know what they're doing, then you're going to be kind of confused as the web developer. You're going to be like, how is this? You're going to have a lot of questions. You're going to be going back and forth, and it's just, the workflow is just going to struggle. When you're designing, you want to do like more prototyping, and you want to help out the developer as best as you can by showing them what you want in the functionality, in the logic. Because developers, some of the developers aren't like me. They're not cool. They're not understanding. They don't understand how design works. So they're like, how do you do this? What do you expect me to do? What is the functionality? And they just keep going back and forth. They're kind of rude sometimes. So, just understanding both really goes a long way. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, was just what is a web designer? What is the web developer? What tools do a developer do? What logic are they thinking? What do designers do? What do I do as a web designer? Well, how do I pass it off to a web developer? And how do I become both? So I think I want to do another video where I talk about how I became both, but I can ramble on, and that's the thing. I want to make these, I start pushing out more videos, and I have an update for you guys, and I just want to share that. I don't get a lot of views on YouTube, so it is what it is. But I mean, if I keep pushing out content, I mean, eventually people are going to start flocking back to me, and I want to appear to be on the internet more. I'm going to get a new vlogging camera soon, so it's going to be dope. And I'm also like documenting my career growth. So that's that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed my quick web design development talk. Thank you. Let's go.